Hello everybody, this is Tim here again, here with another commentary. Finally ready to do the commentary for Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Now for those keeping track of my commentaries or who have been following my Nightmare on Elm Street commentaries so far, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, it's a 4 out of 4 for me. I think it's a masterpiece. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is only like a so-so, it's only like a so-so sequel to a Nightmare on Elm Street if you wanted something that continued really what worked in the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. But as its own thing, which is what it really is, because the director said he had no intention of going in the direction of the first film or even staying true to that vision of the first film. It's its own thing, and as like a gay metaphor movie, it's actually pretty good. But as in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, it doesn't really work, not that well. Now, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, I think, is a great sequel. I think A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is a great sequel. I like A New Nightmare better than Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but in terms of being like a real sequel to the first movie, New Nightmare is not a real sequel to the first movie. It's its own thing. But Dream Warriors is a great sequel to the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I would give it a 4 out of 4. Now, we head into Dream Master. Now, this one came out in 1988. Freddy Mania at the time was huge thanks to his appearances on MTV and everything and all that. And this film really kicked it into 100% gear. So if you want to follow along with me, I'm going to count down from 3 to 1, and then we're going to get started. So 3, 2, 1, pressing play now. Alright, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, baby. This is one of my favorite ones of the series in terms of just pure entertainment. Like the original Nightmare on Elm Street film, it's entertaining, but it's entertaining in that like really scary way. Like the original Nightmare on Elm Street is a pure horror film. It's not really trying to entertain you, it's trying to scare you. And for that, it's really well made. Um, but in terms of like pure entertainment, the ones that are trying to be like to entertain the audience deliberately, to be fun, or to have fun elements, 3 and 4 are the ones for that easily. Like this movie is easily one of the most entertaining of the series, along with part 3. And the ideas in it are like a perfect continuation of number 3. This one feels less like a horror movie than number 3 did, which was more balanced, like horror comedy, but like a perfect balance. This one is more like almost like an action film in certain spots, which is definitely attributed to Renny Harlin and his direction. I like this opening and this song at the beginning, Running from This Nightmare by Tuesday Knight, who replaces Patricia Arquette in the movie. There's been conflicting rumors or whatever, or explanations for like why Patricia Arquette didn't return. Some people say that she wanted more money and they didn't want to pay her. Other people say it's because she was pregnant. Nobody really knows. I know that she actually had a bad time on the set of Dream Warriors, and supposedly Chuck Russell was like really hard to work with on that movie. So she really may have just not wanted to come back, just not wanting to relive that. And if she had a really bad time, I mean, who can blame her, honestly? But I think Tuesday Knight does a good, fine job here as this version of Kristen, but it feels like really different than the one we got in the last movie. Lisa Wilcox, of course, as Alice in this, who becomes the new lead. She's great in this. Easily my favorite hero of the standard of Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I mean, Nancy does kind of get the edge as being better because she's in the better films. If you count New Nightmare along with 1 and 3. But in terms of like pure character development and just acting overall, if you don't count New Nightmare, then Alice easily wins. But yeah, great song opening. Definitely feels very mid 80s, like at the height of 80s, with the rock and roll and everything. Makeup effects by Kevin Yeager. I believe he also did the effects in 2 and 3. He does a great job with the Freddy makeup. He should have stuck in the whole series doing the makeup. They should have brought him back for Dream Warriors. I mean, not Dream Warriors, but Dream Child and Freddy's Dead, and even New Nightmare. Really, he should, or even Freddy vs. Jason. Like, yeah, he should have stayed on board for all the films. He's a great makeup effects artist. I'm not even sure if he still like does effects. I'm sure he does, maybe, or maybe he probably has like a company or something, or people who work with him who still does effects. But I haven't really seen his name specifically on a lot of stuff. But yeah, he's a great effects artist. Got the Elm Street house back here looking very dilapidated, completely falling apart. just like how it looked in 3. Good visuals in this too. This probably has the best visuals, like in terms of cinematography and just out and out pure visuals of it, out of maybe every Elm Street movie or any Elm Street movie. Yeah, if you've been following along with my commentaries, I do plan to do commentaries for all these Nightmare on Elm Street films, even the remake, which is the one I'm looking forward to the least. Like, when it comes to the Nightmare on Elm Street films, I can understand why people have their certain favorites and stuff like that. Like, Part 1, in my opinion, is easily the best written film of the series. Like, Part 3, I really like. It's a great sequel, but I don't think it's as good as some people say it is. I think it is a little overrated in the fan community of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I think part of the reason why it is, though, is because that was the first one that really showed Freddy with a larger than life personality instead of just like a pure slasher villain like he was in the first. But so people just had so much fun with 3 that they were willing to forgive more of its writing flaws. But since I wasn't around like in the 80s and stuff when these films like first came out, um, I was born in '89, so I'm born after these films' heyday. So I was never like around when Freddy first became the big sorry, I had to spit it out. Pop culture icon. So by then I'd already seen 4 in the movies after. So when I finally went back and watched the original, that's the one that really blew me away because I was like, oh man, he's so pure and vicious here. Like I watched the pop culture funny Freddy and horror comedy Freddy like with 3 and on way before I watched the super scary Freddy from the original movie. So that was the original one that blew me away with its intensity. And I think just on a script level, it's just better written and better constructed together. It's not as fun as Dream Warriors, but it's better put together. And in part 2, I can really understand why people don't like it. In the context of the series, it does not fit at all. It really doesn't make any sense why Freddy's randomly trying to possess a boy all of a sudden for no reason when he's invincible in the dream world. But at the same time, though, they wanted to go a completely different direction. And you will either, at this point, it's been so many years since it came out, you will either be willing to accept that or you won't. And you're not wrong in either, like, you're not wrong by accepting it or not. If you wanted a pure Nightmare on Elm Street movie and you don't want to see some kind of possession, like gay subtext story, then you are not wrong in that. Like, you are not wrong in not wanting to see that because it's not really a Nightmare on Elm Street. But if you can accept that for what it is, I still think it's a pretty good movie, even if it is kind of corny in places, stuff like that, like the exploding parakeets. And there's some plot holes in the movie that don't really make sense, even in the context for the movie it is. It doesn't. There's still some plot holes, but it's still entertaining as a possession, like haunted house story. And of course, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors put Freddy on the map, and then this one just runs with it. This movie completes the evolution. And it's really fun for that. I mean, if you're going to go in that direction, I prefer a darker Freddy, but at the same time, I don't mind a funny Freddy because realistically, I grew up with horror movies. I was never really scared of horror films because I watched them as a child, and I always understood that movies were movies. I was never like some kid that was confused that thought they were reality or whatever. Like I grew up watching Freddy and Jason movies at like 6 years old, and I was never bothered by them. Hell, I watched The Exorcist as like just a slightly older kid. I was never scared by these movies. I just had fun with them. I just thought they were fun. Even the more intense original film, which kind of blew me away with its intensity when I watched it, I still had fun with it. But yeah, so what I'm saying is I don't have any problem with funny Freddy if that's the direction you want to go, or a more entertaining Freddy instead of just straight up scary, because I'm not really going to get scared of scary Freddy either. But I just personally prefer, sorry about that. I just personally prefer a more intense Freddy. That's just more to my personal taste. Even if I'm not personally scared by him, I can still tell when he's scary. And I just like it when these franchises stay pure to what they were created to be, which is a horror series to be scary. But like I said, I can still have fun with funny Freddy, even though they go way too over the top with it in later films like Freddy's Dead. This movie has likable characters still. That's one thing I'll say about the first 4 Nightmare on Elm Street films. They all have likable characters. Like Nancy is likable in part 1, and her friends are enjoyable to watch. They're fun. Part 2, Jesse's likable, even though he's pretty much a victim the whole film. He's still likable as a character. The actor does a good job. Part 3 that has the most likable cast of the series, in my opinion. This one, Alice is really likable because she's played great by Lisa Wilcox as this really shy girl who, even with her like get up with her trying to look more conservative, I guess is the word. Um, she still looks pretty. Like Lisa Wilcox is a very pretty girl, easily the prettiest like chick in the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Like I had a big crush on her when I first saw this movie, and I think a lot of guys did. And the guy who plays Rick here, Andres Jones, I think is how you say his name. He's good. He's really likable too. He's so likable in this film and so much fun to watch that honestly killing him off was a mistake. I know that was part of the script for them to kill him off, but the Dan character here is really weak. Um, the Debbie character here, she's another one. She's just okay. Like her whole character is just built around the fact that she likes to work out. She's not really that interesting, and Dan is pretty bland. He's just kind of passable. This movie would have been better if Dan's character either would have died in the place of Rick, or maybe had lived, and Rick would have lived too. Like they should have at this point they were probably thinking about like a franchise mentality, so they should have been also thinking about what actors to keep around for sequels who were the most likable. They should have kept Rick around. He's a likable character. And I know in his death in the movie, he gets killed in like a karate dojo or whatever. Originally he was supposed to be killed in the elevator, but when they couldn't get the effect to work, they started thinking maybe we should just let him live, but they'd already shot the funeral scene. They should have just let the guy live. They should have just scrapped the funeral scene and reshot something else, and just he should have never have died. That was a mistake killing his character, or they should have just kept part. Or they should have just filmed a scene where Freddy attacked him, but he managed to get away, something like that. But they should have kept his character alive. He really would have helped the Dream Child movie if he was still around by then, because he's really likable. And Alice, the actress who plays Alice, Lisa Wilcox, she has way better chemistry with the dude playing her brother than she does with Dan. The girl who plays Sheila, she's good. She's fine. She's good as the token nerd. This cast is not as good overall as part 3, but it's still good. But most of the it's still good. It's fine. But most of the most likable chemistry comes from Lisa Wilcox and the guy who plays her brother, Rick. I like that you got Kincaid and Joey back as the same characters, though. That's pretty cool. I always like continuity, and Freddy and even Friday the 13th keep pretty good continuity for most of their films for what they are. Like Friday the 13th is more of a B movie series. These movies, they're more about the exploration of dreams and nightmares and stuff, and slashing killings on top of that. Much more of like a metaphysical type thing than Friday the 13th. But yeah, overall, both franchises keep decent to good continuity for most of the films until like way later and stuff like Freddy's Dead and even maybe Jason Goes to Hell, which I actually like Jason Goes to Hell, but that's a different story. But yeah, the continuity is pretty solid in these Nightmare on Elm Street films up until like Freddy's Dead. Joey's good here. His character was more interesting when he didn't talk in part 3. He had more going. It felt like he had more going on there as a character. Here he's just kind of a standard teenager, probably skateboards or something with his long hair. Um, Ken Sagos as Kincaid is great still. Here we got some plot problems though. She's talking like how Freddy's gonna come back and all that. And we get a flash to the lockers with the razor claws on it. Now that's not for the characters because the characters would have reacted to it if they saw it. That's just specifically there as a visual for the audience to see. It gives the film like a cool comic book type look, but at the same time, it makes no sense story wise while it's there. That's specifically only there for the audience. You could have lost that. You didn't need that. Of course, what they're trying to hint at, the whole idea here is that she is stirring Freddy up again by going back into his dream world over and over, and he's basically feeding off her fear, and that's giving him the ability to come back. It's a little clunky and a little too easy for Freddy just to come back after the big defeat he got in 3, but they really wanted a sequel, and it is a little forced. You really could have stopped at 3, but this is a worthy sequel to 3. It's just not as good as 3. But Freddy's rebirth is a little forced in how easily he's able to come back. I love this song by Dramarama, where anything, anything. This movie has a great soundtrack. Like, really, this is easily the best soundtrack of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Great rocking soundtrack. Dream Child, I don't want to talk about too much because, of course, that'll be the next commentary. But that film is not as good as this one or Dream Warriors. But I think it could have been if they would have kept a similar tone to what they went with in Dream Warriors and this one, Dream Master, and just made it fun like they did these two. I think it would have done much better at the box office. Even though I do like Dream Child, I don't really hate any of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Some I like better than others, and some aren't as good as others. But I don't really hate any of these films. Freddy's Dead is the worst, though, of the actual series. The remake is its own thing. That's the worst in terms of, like, actual films in the series, or franchise. I really love this daydreaming angle with the Alice character. Really well done. Yeah, really well done with the whole daydreaming angle. And just the character development of the plot here with how she's going to, like, find the strength within herself and all that to defeat Freddy by the end, and how each time one of her friends gets killed, she gets their dream powers or whatever. That's a really cool idea. So you pretty much, you have, like, the ultimate dream warrior versus Freddy Krueger, who's the ultimate dream demon. And Alice is the dream master in this. The script here is a little clunky because when it gets to Kristen's death, she gets killed and transfers her power into Alice. Now, Freddy would have to know that she would do that because we find out in the movie, without the Elm Street kids, he can't even get to the new kids. So he would have had to have known that she was going to do that. Otherwise, it makes no sense why he would kill her and why he wouldn't just use her to bring him new victims. So that really doesn't make sense. It is a little clunky there. And at the same time, Alice keeps absorbing other kids' powers, even though Kristen gave her power. So one person gave her power, but she's able to absorb other people's powers. The only conclusion you can draw from it is that Alice's actual dream power is to absorb other people's powers to become the Dream Master, which is the good equivalent of Freddy Krueger, basically. The universe is, like, balancing itself out with the Alice character, basically, is what they're going for. But yeah, it's still a little clunky. You could have tightened this script up a little bit. This idea of the whole Dream Master thing. It would have played smoother. Like they should have just had it to where Alice did just absorb random dream powers, and you didn't need Kristen to, like, give her her power. Like, Freddy could have just killed her because he was trying to kill Alice and Kristen jumped in the way or something. You could easily fix that and just have it play much smoother. There was, like, a writer's strike going on at the time this film was made, and you can tell the script is not as tight as part 3. It's still good, but it's not as tight as part 3. And I like how Kincaid's dog is named Jason. That's pretty damn funny. It pisses fire, of course, which is only there because they want, like, a cool, like, rock and roll heavy metal visual for, like, how Freddy returns, like a dog pisses fire. It's so freaking crazy. It is silly, but Freddy's actual rebirth when the ground opens up and his body goes back together, stolen straight from Hellraiser though. But when it still though, if you're gonna take from the best, but the original Hellraiser anyway, the sequels are pretty bad. But yeah, Freddy's rebirth here when he goes back together with the bones and everything, terrific effect. Yeah, it's a great effect. This movie has the best special effects of the series, and most of them still hold up really well even today. That is part of the charm of this one. It is a big, like, special effects show. But if you're dealing with dreams where anything can happen, then you really need to have fun with the special effects, in my opinion. You need to be creative with it. I like how Freddy's glove just, like, appears on his hand from fire or whatever. It's kind of neat. Of course, we get the line, "You shouldn't have buried me, I'm not dead." I think this is the first movie where Robert Englund gets top billing, which makes sense. When it comes to these, like, horror slasher series, which on Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th is really the pure, like, slasher series of the group. A Nightmare on Elm Street is more of like a horror fantasy or horror metaphysical slasher or whatever. It's more about the dreams and stuff than it is just like pure slashing. But still, though, it is a slasher series by definition of slasher. And Freddy and Jason, yeah, were the kings of the slashers in like the mid '80s. Like Jason was the king. Michael Myers pretty much kicked it off. There were other slasher films before that, or similar slasher films, but Michael Myers is the one that made it really popular, and then Jason made it super popular. And then after Jason was the king for a while, Freddy comes along and just completely steals Jason's thunder because he becomes the pop culture icon. Nowadays, they're about even in popularity. I'd say Jason might be a little bit popular today than Freddy. But in the mid 80s, Freddy was king. I love Kincaid pushing a car down on him. I like it when the characters actually fight back. But yeah, when it comes to these big horror like slasher series and all that, the killer is the star. I mean, they are the star because they're the one character that's a constant that keeps coming back in every movie. You can always get new like written leads and stuff like that for these types of movies, but you have to have the same iconic killer. So that's why they inevitably become the star of all their series. That's why it happens. Because they're the one constant. I love this visual how they pan up and like the whole planet is like almost a globe or whatever. Or yeah, it's like the whole Earth is just nothing but this one damn parking lot. I love Robert Englund's line "See you in hell." He says, "No, no." The Kincaid says "See you in hell," and then Robert Englund goes, "Tell him Freddy sent you." That's great, great line, hilarious. Joey's death in this is really like a homage to Johnny Depp's death in the first movie with the whole waterbed thing. There's actually a few deleted scenes from this flick that have never been shown even to this day. If you watch like the UK trailer for this film, you can see some snippets from some of the deleted scenes. Originally, Kristen here was supposed to have a nightmare herself where Freddy came after her while she was sitting in the window smoking her cigarette. She was supposed to fall asleep. She's supposed to have a dream where she's in the Elm Street house, and Freddy Krueger's glove was supposed to be like chasing her through the house from underneath the ground. It's supposed to be something like that, and the house was like a maze. And then she like looks at him and says something like, "I knew you'd be back" or something. And then she wakes up because her damn cigarette accidentally falls on her and burns her and wakes her up. They deleted that out, I suppose, probably for pacing reasons. But yeah, and there's another scene that was removed where Freddy like kills Alice's dad in the dream world, not for real, but just kills him in the dream world in for a nightmare sequence and like pushes his head through a wall or whatever. That would have been another cool sequence. This waterbed scene is great. We got a hot chick right here underneath the blanket. Yeah, this guy has the best nightmares. I love how they keep Joey's like weakness consistent between this and part three. Titties is his weakness, which is pretty much every guy's weakness. Robert Englund's line, "How's this for a wet dream?" which they freaking rip off for the remake with Jackie Earle Haley. And I don't blame Jackie Earle Haley for that movie. It's just a bad written movie, and it felt really rushed. It felt like it had no direction. I love the blood like mixing in with the water and stuff. Really cool. Yeah, great death. But yeah, I think if they would have kept just like raising the bar in terms of like the visual effects and pure effects and stuff like that, and just in terms of the popcorn entertainment of the movies, like they did 3 and 4, if they would have kept that up for like 5 and 6, they probably could have made up to like 8 or 9 of these movies. I mean, just right from each other, right off the bat, without having to like go dormant for a couple years and then do like New Nightmare and stuff. I think audiences really wanted the fun Freddy tone of 3 and 4, like after this one. And part 5 was also rushed by coming out just like a year after this one. That was way too soon. They should have waited till 1990 to pump out part 4. I mean, part 5 or whatever. They should have waited till 1990. It's not 89. That was way too soon. Yeah, Rick's character is like bonding with Alice and all that. Lisa Wilcox is super cute. Of course, when she does her ninja kick here and the shoe flies into the fish tank. Like Lisa Wilcox still looks hot even today, even at old age. So you can tell that she's just like a natural beauty that aged really well because she still looks really good. This is hilarious when Glenn's mom like finds his body like inside the waterbed. This is great. Not Glenn. I said Glenn. I mean Joey's mom. What Glenn? The damn death is so similar. I started thinking it was Johnny Depp's character. One other thing I like about this movie is that Alice like picks up the traits as well as the powers of the characters. Like she starts repeating phrases and stuff that they use. I thought that was really cool. That was a neat addition. And I also like how she like starts smoking because Kristen used to smoke, and after Kristen gets killed, she picks up her damn smoking habit. That was funny. Another kind of slightly weak point in the movie though is it's like this whole Dream Master rhyme or whatever. Like you really don't need that. It's supposed to be like a well, I guess what they're trying to do is to give the Dream Master like her own like similar thing like in terms of like similar to the jump rope song that Freddie gets because she's supposed to be like the good equivalent of Freddie, so she must have like her own like classic saying as well. You don't really need it. You don't need to be. You don't need Alice to be like indirectly bring up the Dream Master title or whatever. Like, you can just call the movie Dream Master, and I think people would be smart enough just to get the idea that Alice is the Dream Master. You don't really need to like say it in the movie. I don't think. Well, Joanne Kincaid are dead. Rick has awesome hair in this. I love this. Robert Englund in drag as the nurse. Hilarious. And I wonder how many people actually knew what Robert Englund looked like at this time. I'm sure he had appeared on some talk shows and stuff like that, out of character and out of the makeup, but I'm not sure like everybody knew. So it is always fun when he cameos and stuff like that. I wonder how many people though knew that this was actually him and didn't think it was just some like ugly chick. That's funny. But yeah, Robert's great as this character. Even today at his older age, even though he can't like probably couldn't move around as much as the character, he could still do a great job just acting as the character, just pure acting wise in a movie. But I understand why he wants to pass the torch to another actor. If you look close at like the vials of blood that Freddy had or whatever in his hands, one of them actually says England on it, I believe. It's something like that. It's either England or the names of like one of the people who worked on the film. I'm not for sure. When I'm actually watching the film on my big TV, I'm actually able to read what the vials say, which is pretty cool. In this movie, Springwood like really feels like a town like straight out of the 40s or something like that, or the 50s. They got like this old like record playing machine in there, jukebox or whatever. Yeah, it really feels like this classic town or whatever that hasn't moved on in the ages. Yeah, Dan is the good-natured jock, which is played by Danny Hassel. I'm sure he did the best he could with what he had. His character is just not very interesting and is extremely rote. I love this dropped line right here though, where Alice is like, "My worst fear is to be working in this diner job forever," which I find that funny because they bring it back up later in the movie in a nightmare sequence. I'm sure I've talked about this before in the other commentaries, but yeah, the interesting thing about these Freddy movies is they revolve around dreams, and you can do so much with that. You can do anything with that kind of world, anything. I was always surprised they never like made a pure like almost 100% in the dream world a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, where it was just like characters just like going into the dream world at like maybe after the first act of the movie, like to defeat Freddy, and spending almost the entire movie until the end in the dream world just battling Freddy on his home turf. With they did something similar to that in Dream Warriors, but it wasn't as much as it could have been. I'm surprised they didn't like really like explore the dream world as like an alternate dimension or something, that had maybe even other creatures in it and shit. You could really do something with that. I'm also surprised that we haven't gotten a new Freddy movie yet. Wes Craven's estate, his family owns the rights to the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and people are hungry for a new one. I'm surprised they haven't like made a new one yet to like, keep the legacy going and stuff. I mean, they don't have to, and I can understand if they just want to let it rest. And I'm sure they want to honor their father's memory and not do a crap a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. But there's a lot of good directors out there with probably have new and good original takes on the material that could really do something. Even if you didn't want to do, we don't need another straight remake of the original. Do something different. Do a reboot. Even if you want to do a sequel in the that takes place in this original series, you could still do something totally different with Freddy. Like treat Freddy like James Bond. Hire a new actor, a younger actor, of course, and just like let him play out like 5 or 6 more movies that take place in the same timeline as these originals, and then recast again. Just keep going. Like that would be cool to me. Robert Englund could be like the OG one, like he can be the Sean Connery of the series or franchise. It is pretty funny that the townspeople like leave this Elm Street house up, even though it's in absolutely horrible shape. Wouldn't they have mowed it down by now? And then one of the original drafts of the script for Part 5, they actually were planning to do that, and they wanted to like build a mall in its place, which makes a lot more sense actually. I like they brought back the same mother from Dream Warriors, who's actually the mom of the chick from Friday 13th Part 5, who was the like kind of goth new wave girl or whatever in that, who did the robot. But yeah, she looks down there and sees like the old like chalk drawing that the kids made in the dream world or whatever on the steps, which is supposed to show, I believe, that she has like a link to Freddy and all that. It's just supposed to keep furthering the idea that she's Freddy's opposite or whatever, and they're kind of two halves of the same coin and all that. Of course, coming up, we got the Kristen death scene here. Her mom has put her to sleep with sleeping pills, or, well, has just drugged her with them, and she's gonna fall asleep. I'm sure nowadays, though, if they did, I mean, they will eventually do a new A Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and it probably will be a reboot. I'm sure, though, when they eventually do it, it won't be connected to these old films. It'll be entirely its own thing that goes its own new direction that has no relation to these films, except probably some callbacks and stuff. It'll be like its own movie, so they can just start a whole new timeline with a whole new Freddy, which makes sense because kids today probably haven't seen these original films. But I still think that you could still do a proper sequel to these original flicks and just go a new direction and just have it take place in the original timeline. You don't even have to like set it in current time after Freddy vs. Jason, which is where it would be if you set it in today's timeline or today's time. You could do it like after Freddy's dead and still make a shitload. Not after Freddy's dead, but after Dream Child and still make like a shitload of movies like set in the early '90s that lead up to Freddy's dead. I was always surprised they haven't done like a new TV series or something, or that they never did a new TV series with Robert Englund back as the character and just have like Freddy on TV, like doing plots where he's killing teenagers who are trying to fight back against him and stuff. Always surprised they never did that, or even a prequel series about Freddy when he was alive, having somebody play like the young Robert Englund. I was surprised they've never done that either. That seems like something that would be worth doing. But at the same time, though, we do know pretty much everything about Freddy and his backstory throughout these movies, and there's even though it would be kind of neat to see, it's a prequel. Yeah, it's not really necessary. It may work as a TV series though, as like a police procedural. You could do that, but I don't think it's truly necessary. But there is part of me that wouldn't mind a new Freddy Krueger actual like television series. Yeah, this dream on the beach and everything is really neat because he's trying to dream of a place, fun that doesn't have Freddy in it, trying to have a good dream, and then Freddy invades the dream. Really just fun idea. Rennie Harlan has a great visual eye, and he's good with special effects as well. Seeing Freddy's glove as Jaws is pretty damn funny. Seeing Freddy put on the shades is also another hilarious gag. I think some people kind of look down on like these more fun Freddy movies or whatever because of what Freddy eventually became in Freddy's Dead. But you can't hold what Freddy becomes eventually against these movies who may have started him on the path because they do it well. This movie and part three, for the most part, do the more entertaining, fun Freddy well. So I don't think it's fair to really hold it against him, hold it against them. I mean, because of what Freddy eventually becomes when they push it too far and Freddy's dead. And Freddy always had a sense of humor, even back in the first movie. It was just more downplayed. course, here comes Alice. The boiler room has chains in it here for the first time in the series, which really reminds me of Hellraiser. This film has a lot of like Hellraiser influence. Now, yeah, here's the part where he throws Kristen into the fire, obviously to kill her, but he had no idea she was going to send her power into Alice. There's no way he could have known that, so it really doesn't make much sense on why he's so gun ho to kill her. That is kind of clunky. I like seeing the souls again on his chest that were in the last movie. Of course, by the time you get to Freddy's dead, he's killed like 1,000,000 kids almost. So there's probably not enough room left on his chest to show him off. She gets back to the real world, of course, and sees the picture on the wall. It says "Greetings from Hell" with Freddy and Kristen, which doesn't really make much sense because Freddy's not supposed to be able to like interact with the real world. That's what Wes Craven's rules. Whenever you see Freddy, it is a dream, no matter what. But there, he's able to, and the other movies after this one kind of fudge it as well. But it was still funny. I like seeing the graves of all the other like victims throughout the movies in the cemetery. That was pretty cool. One interesting thing is I've been doing these Nightmare on Elm Street commentaries for about like almost 2 years now, and it's been fun. It's gonna be interesting when I finally do make it to the Jason movies to do commentaries for them. It's gonna feel different watching something else besides Freddy. Even though I have watched other stuff, I've been taking my time with these Nightmare on Elm Street commentaries, not wanting to like really rush them out, and also because I got other stuff I just have to do in day-to-day activity. But yeah, like I was saying, Lisa Wilcox's chemistry with the guy who plays her brother, the brother character Rick, is just so much better here than her chemistry with the dude who plays Dan. Maybe what they should have done if they really wanted to go this direction, or maybe they should have like just erased the Dan character or the brother character, I mean, and gotten rid of him, and just replaced, uh, took the guy who plays her brother and made him the love interest, and just changed the love interest name to Rick. That would have probably been better. Because she has so much better chemistry with this dude than the guy who plays Dan. His character is just bland. And once again, I don't blame the actor. I don't believe he's given anything to work with. And I don't think the filmmaker, I don't think Rennie Harlan seems very interested in Dan's character either. We got Sheila coming up here as the next death. We're almost about halfway through the movie, really. These movies, when I do these commentaries, they always fly by pretty quick. The only one that kind of didn't was the Snyder Cut commentary I did, because that movie's 4 hours, of course. And I had to do that in parts because it was long as hell. Yeah, I like that little callback there about how she doesn't smoke, but she's getting ready to smoke because Kristen did. Of course, it begs the question: didn't she realize she didn't smoke when she bought the cigarettes? But if she was, taking on character traits from other of her friends that had been killed, then she probably was just zoned out when she bought the cigarettes or whatever. Seeing Freddy do a nightmare in the classroom is really fun. Words are scrambling on the paper. I used to watch like A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4 like back to back, like all the time when I was a kid. Like this one and part 3 were the ones I watched the most as a kid. Nowadays it's more part 1 and New Nightmare. Learning is fun with Freddy. You got a robot hand coming up here. Some people have a problem with the robot hand, but to me it's a dream. It can be anything, so it doesn't have to make perfect sense. So I'm okay with just like the wild visual of this friggin' random robot hand. I don't have any problem with it really. Because that's what these are. They're dreams. Freddy kills people in dreams. You can do anything, and dreams don't have to make sense. Not perfect sense. I like Robert Englund peeling the apple. That's hilarious. Of course, we got the Robert Englund standard tongue wiggle right here in a minute. I like the fact he literally sucks her life force out of her, takes her soul, makes it look like an asthma attack. But yeah, I have no problem with Funny Freddy. I grew up with Funny Freddy. I don't really care if you want to go that direction. I mean, I prefer like straight scary Freddy, but if you want to go the funny route, I'm fine with it. I grew up with 3 and 4. I'm cool with that. I mean, truthfully, if they didn't make Freddy funny and give him a big personality, the franchise would have petered out much sooner. We probably wouldn't have even made it to a part 4, to be honest, if they would have kept Freddy just like he was in that first movie, which I like. I prefer Freddy how he was in that first movie, but you can't really just do a franchise with a character who is just more laid back and just straight evil all the time and doesn't have much going on like Freddy does, like in that first movie. You need to, like, them giving him a bigger personality is what kept this franchise alive. And kept it going. I like how every time one of her friends dies, she takes their picture off the mirror. That's really cool. I believe Rick's death is actually the next one coming up. I also like this sequence right here where Alice realizes that Freddy was linked to the original Elm Street children because the parents killed him. So in order to get new kids, he has to have a conduit or a way to do it. So he has to use Alice for that. That's a good idea for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Like Freddy having to use somebody to bring in victims. That is a good idea. Part of me wonders, should I do commentaries for the Leprechaun movies? I'm not sure. Maybe sometime in the future after the Jason series is over. I mean, after Freddy, you have to do Jason. You have to. Freddy and Jason are like simpatico. I mean, you got to do them. Michael Myers, maybe after Halloween Ends comes out, which is supposed to be the last one in the new trilogy, which we obviously know it probably won't be. But if it when it comes out though, I'll probably, by the time I get done with the Friday 13th movies, Halloween Ends should already be out. So when I'm done with Jason, I could probably just step into the Michael Myers world and do them. Because once I do one movie in a franchise, I do them all. I don't quit. It is kind of interesting to think about that the original Nightmare on Elm Street was really just meant to be a one-off movie, and how it was like kind of forced into a franchise, really. But it works. And if it works, it works. Yeah, we got Rick's death coming up here. I still think Rick should have lived. Once again, sorry about that coughing. Should have brought me a water for this commentary. I like the Robert Shea cameo right here as the teacher. Of course, he's explaining the plot to the movie. Skilled dreamers, which are supposed to be the Dream Warriors, obviously. Dream Master, which is Alice. He talks about having a positive gate and a negative gate. I assume the positive gate is the good dream world, and the negative gate, of course, is Nightmare Land with Freddy. We got Tuesday Night coming back as Kristen in a nightmare here. Of course, that is one of the weak makeup effects in the film, like maybe the only one, where Kristen turns around and she's supposed to be really burned up, but they looks just like she's just got some black tar thrown on her face. I'm assuming that was probably something quick they just threw together. This film is very effects heavy. Starting with part 3, they really start amping up like the dream sequences and stuff, and this film kind of continues that trend of making them all the dream sequences as spectacular as possible. Some people don't like how you don't actually see Freddy in this dream sequence, though. I agree that with people, they shouldn't have killed off Rick. They should not have done that. But when it comes to like not being able to see Freddy, I really don't have a problem with it because that seems like something Freddy would do, like turn invisible and just beat the hell out of you, like when you're supposed to be a karate master. That does seem like something Freddy would do. Of course, when Alice busts the windows right here in the real world, I feel like that confuses some people. Like, well, how's Alice able to do that or whatever? But I just figure that's because she has Joey's super sound power, so she's able to use them. But of course, it doesn't make perfect sense though how she's able to like use them in the real world and not like just the dream world. Like Freddy can only use his powers in the dream world, so that doesn't really make perfect sense. But I think I get what they're going for there. It's supposed to just be a callback to Joey. This film is not as well written as Part 3, but I actually think it's more entertaining. I love this dream sequence here where Alice's brother comes back to life. It's hilarious. Well, it's actually not. Well, it's hilarious the way he acts when he comes out of the casket, but it's actually really sad at the same time. Yeah, she misses her brother. Really sad. Very well done scene, but his character should not have died. And Dan is still alive for no reason at all. They should have kept Rick around. That is such an obvious mistake for this movie. That's probably the biggest mistake of the film. The girl who plays Debbie, she does okay. She does good for what she's supposed to be. Her character's just okay though, but every now and then she has like a bad line or a bad line delivery. Yeah, every now and then she has like a slightly bad line delivery, but she's never terrible in the movie. She's just kind of okay. The character Debbie. We're almost to the climax of this movie. We're approaching the third act. I like the idea for this sequence and the way it's shot for some of it, for how she's now being able to see herself in the mirror. She's being able to see herself for who she is and starting to accept herself. I like the implications of it, and also like that she starts using her brother's nunchucks. But at the same time, though, like nearly everyone has pointed out, you can see the obvious stuntman here from the back. Yeah, you can see the obvious stuntman there. It's obviously a slimmer dude, like a slimmer short guy in a wig, which is pretty funny. I really don't get why they just didn't give like Lisa Wilcox a couple more nunchuck lessons. I'm sure she probably could have like pulled that off herself. I like how the dad, who's pretty much an asshole in this movie, has an actual arc. He's like, since he's lost his son, he's starting to try to be a better father. He's trying to sober up a little here to where he wants to protect his daughter. I actually like that. They give him something to where he's not just a strict douchebag through the whole movie. And I like his character arc from 4 to 5. You know, spoilers for 5, which I'm sure you've seen already if you're listening to this commentary. He becomes a much better dad in part 5. I know a lot of fans are kind of partial to part 3 because that was the first like fun Freddy movie that got made. So and it just had the biggest like special effects and everything. So they're just kind of blown away by it. Even though I think that movie has obvious like weaker script problems than part 1, people will overlook certain stuff though if they're having fun. And that's pretty much why I think part 3 is a lot of fans' favorite. Even though it's not the best written of the series, it's just the most like fun and best balanced in terms of horror and comedy. But I will say I never was like blown away by the Kristen character. I thought Patricia Arquette did a good job as the character in that movie, but I was never blown away by Kristen. And so it never bothered me to have Kristen killed in this movie because I was never like a huge Kristen fan. Like I like Nancy. Like to me, Kristen compared to Nancy is just like fine. She was never anything amazing. So I was totally fine with going to the Alice character, who I think is a much more interesting character, especially development wise. She just seems to have more going on. Which, of course, the Kristen character was kind of killed off in this, so she didn't have time to be even more developed. But it didn't really seem like there was much you could really add to that character, really. I suppose you could have made her the Dream Master, but I like Alice's like, character better. Just she's more. Then I like the actress better. I think she's better at delivery than Patricia Arquette was in Part 3, to be honest. I like this dream sequence of how she like just goes into this theater. Of course, you could say logically she left her house in the same exact way her brother did, which was a nice callback to her brother by sneaking out the window. But she left her house to go meet up with Dan. So why is she stopping at this movie theater? But of course, it's because it's a dream, and in dreams you'll just wind up in places and just walk into them all at once without even being able to think. Like dreams are nonsensical; they don't have to be straightforward. This is a great dream sequence. She's sitting there eating her popcorn and stuff, and then all at once she flies into the theater screen. This is probably the best effects dream sequence of the whole series. Then, of course, everyone's sitting in a theater stand. Turns out to be the dead victims so far in the movie. Another little funny note: the diner Alice works in is called the Crave Inn. You get it, Wes Craven. She's got a Pepsi cup in her hand. I wonder if this movie was endorsed by Pepsi. I have no idea. Truthfully, even though it's been like a year since I've done like the commentary for the first movie, I think it's been a year. Feels like only yesterday, really, that I started these Nightmare on Elm Street commentaries. I'm almost through with the series. I'm pretty much at the halfway point. Yeah, terrific effects. Of course, it does become a little confusing though, because she looks back at the theater and sees herself like asleep in the theater. So that kind of implies that she was awake when she went to the theater, fell asleep in the theater, then got sucked into the movie. But we know that's not the case, because later on during this movie, we find out she's actually still in her room asleep, that she never actually left anywhere, because her and Dan is like in a truck, like driving around in circles, because Freddy's got them both in the dream world because they're both asleep, and she's brought Dan in with him, or Dan in with her. So, like I said, there's some slightly clunky spots in this script, but overall, it is a good script. I love this, seeing the Alice character or whatever as old, still working in the diner, which is supposed to be her greatest fear. I think that would be a lot of people's greatest fear who's in the workplace. This soul pizza is freaking hilarious. If you guys hear me like moving around or anything in the background, that's just me trying to adjust myself while I'm sitting here and enjoying the movie. For part 5, maybe I think I might bring me like a dinner to go with the commentary. Yeah, your shift is over. That's a great line. Yeah, Freddy in this film, he is not scary, but he is fun. And at this point in the series, that's what people wanted. So I'm not gonna be like one of those people who retroactively tries to hate on the more fun Freddy movies just because they eventually led to Freddy's Dead. This is what people wanted from the character at the time. This is what they wanted to see. People did not want another straight horror Freddy movie like 1 or 2. They wanted something like 3 and this one. So you got to give the fans what they want. I'm a Freddy fan just as much as a Jason fan. So I'm perfectly fine with just a fun Freddy movie as long as it is fun. My problem with Freddy's Dead is it takes the comedy way too damn far to just like Stupidville. And that movie is not completely horrible. There's still some fun spots in it, but it just goes way too overboard, especially that damn video game scene. But we'll get there. We still got one more movie after this one before we get to that one. This is a really cool, like, dreamy type idea where they're just, like, going around in circles. I've heard some people say that when they first watched this movie on DVD or whatever, they thought their DVD was, like, skipping or whatever because they either forgot about this sequence or it was their first time watching it, so they didn't know what the hell was going on until they actually realized that it was, like, a dream thing, which is pretty funny. Debbie's character is extremely one note, like, in this movie. She's a character I have no idea why she's lived so long in this movie. But yeah, like I was saying before, the characters in this are not as good as part three, but they're still fine. Lisa Wilcox Alice and the guy who plays Rick, and even the Sheila character was good. The actress was cute. She did a good job. Even those like three are good enough. The chemistry between Lisa Wilcox and the guy who plays her brother alone are enough to carry like this whole cast, to be honest. And of course, Freddy's the real star, so you don't really have to have like amazing characters for the human victims, but it helps. Screaming Mad George, fantastic makeup effects sequence here. He always does pretty good work. Great effects here with this cockroach. The best dream death in the film is this damn cockroach death. Yeah, them going in a circle is freaking hilarious. I watched an interview with Robert Englund from like maybe a year ago, where he was talking about how the Nightmare on Elm Street remake was just kind of too soon because the films are still out on Blu-ray and stuff. The original ones are, and they look really clear and clean now and stuff, and better than they even did when they were in theaters. And that's not a lot of people are just discovering them nowadays. That is probably somewhat true, and especially since Freddy vs. Jason, the movie was just only a few years before the remake. I don't understand why they jumped to just doing a remake. You could have. Why not just do another movie with Robert Englund? Freddy vs. Jason was a huge friggin' hit. Excellent special effects for the cockroach, by the way. But yeah, just like The Fly, great transformation. Best special effects of the series, hands down. But yeah, Freddy vs. Jason was not that far before the remake, or not that long before it. Like Robert Englund in the interview, he said that they should have just made a sequel to Freddy vs. Jason first before they and then waited like 5 years before they ever did the remake. I agree. I don't know why they jumped to just doing a remake. Like the Robert Englund Freddy character was really hot and a hot commodity after the Freddy vs. Jason did so well in theaters. I don't get why they just jumped to just doing just doing a remake. It felt like so unnecessary and just out of the blue. And the movie plays like a cash grab, and I just don't get why they did that though. I mean, logically, why would you do that after you've just had a big hit with Freddy vs. Jason? Audiences after that movie are starved for more Robert Englund Freddy. It was a hot commodity right then. You could have even made a solo Freddy right after that. It still would have done pretty good because of the hype from Freddy vs. Jason. Why would you just jump to a remake? I don't get that at all. That makes no sense to me. But yeah, there's when we realized that she was still dreaming, basically. But I was wrong though. She didn't wake back up in her room though. She woke up in the truck when she crashed into a tree. So apparently that's another thing that's slightly inconsistent in the series. Sometimes when you're asleep dreaming in the movies and you're like exploring the dream world, you're like still in your bed and you haven't really moved anywhere. You're just like moving around in the dream, but you're still your physical body's still in the bed. But in other movies, when you're in the dream world moving around, your actual physical body is actually moving around instead of just laying on the ground or wherever you're at in your bed asleep. So that is something that's slightly inconsistent in the series. And that's something that they just did right here as well. Of course, they want to put Dan to sleep, and Alice will have none of that. The lighting in this film is very much like a comic book. It looks cool though, like the green lighting inside the ambulance. It looks very like fantastical, like something straight from a comic book. I like the choice for the visuals here. I'm surprised they didn't ask Rennie Harlan to return for part 5. I guarantee you he could have made an entertaining as hell part 5, even with the same exact like Dream Child concept. Because this movie was a huge hit. Like Dream Warriors did really well. This film was a mega hit, like blockbuster size. I don't see why they didn't just bring it. Like obviously after this movie, people really enjoyed it. They wanted that same energy that this movie provided. Why not just bring Rennie Harlan back for a part 5 and just let him bring the same energy to that? I don't get that. I don't know why they didn't just do that. It's like they felt like they needed to do something totally different with each movie. You can do that while still bringing the same energy, though, that the people at the time are wanting to see. Like, you could have still kept the same exact Dream Child gimmick for part 5, but still let Rennie Harlan do it and make it fun. You didn't need to, like, go in a gothic tone and all that. You could have still kept the same gimmick idea, but had Rennie Harlan do it and still keep it fun. Hell, you could have brought back Chuck Russell to do it. But it's like they felt the need to just get somebody totally different every time to just provide a totally different vision. But my opinion is when you get something that works, just keep what works until it doesn't work anymore and then go a different direction. If you're really like intent on making a franchise out of it, keep the films and the style similar to what people are wanting. In part 5, people were wanting something similar to this, part 4. I don't know why they didn't just do that. But at the same time, I do like part 5. It is weaker than this one and the one before it, but it's not a terrible movie, but it is weaker. It feels really rushed. And then part 6 just feels like they're almost out of ideas. Alice taking the sleeping meds to go kick Freddy's ass. This montage here, like in the style of Rocky, is freaking great. Pure 80s, like, fun B movie. And this one is really a just like big, like blockbuster B movie Freddy Krueger film. But it's entertaining as hell, and it does a really good job at being that. And I'm fine with that. If you just want to have fun with it, I have no problem with it. This is the logical continuation of what Freddy would be after part 3. Freddy's Dead is the logical continuation of what that version would be if he was on crack. But yeah, I like this when she takes off all the pictures because everybody she knows is pretty much dead now. So all her friends is gone, so she takes all the pictures off the mirror. Of course, her name's Alice, so she goes through the looking glass, through the mirror, to get to the dream world. That's pretty neat. I like that little riding homage there. I love her line F and A, of course, taken from Kincaid. That's great. Pure 80s. This film feels the most 80s out of all the Nightmare on Elm Street flicks. Robert Englund's line right there, though, well, it ain't Dr. Seuss when Dan goes Kruger. That's a little bad. The line is, but Robert Englund delivers it in such a fun way that you really don't. It just doesn't bother you too much. I love how Alice is like a badass action hero at this point in the movie. Her character's become fully transformed. I mean, in some ways, you can say Nancy's the better hero because she didn't need powers to really fight Freddy. But at the same time, though, in the original film, Nancy struggled against Freddy. When Alice fights him, it's much more closer to equal. Of course, Dan's character he starts bleeding from the fall that just happened in the movie, and he wakes up, so he's pretty much useless in this final here. We're in the climax of the movie. He's pretty much useless. You see, like I'm saying, if you just kept Rick alive and maybe even had Rick in this climax and not Dan, like you still could have if you wanted to go the Dream Child route, you still could have developed the romance between Dan and Alice in the next movie. But if you would have had Rick in this climax, and if you really wanted to kill his character, have him like sacrifice himself to save his sister. That would be like or to help his sister during the climax and fighting as Freddy. That would be so much cooler. It's so much more of an epic way for him to go out. Of course, Freddy has to say "Welcome to Wonderland, Alice," which is hilarious. Yeah, this fight is much more of like an action flick style throwdown with Freddy. Of course, Freddy's like taking everything she's got, and he's still coming. She's like beating the hell out of him. She's whooping his ass pretty much with her kung fu moves, but he's still coming though. But it's like a martial arts showdown. She knocked him off the pillars. Of course, he isn't dead from a fall. That wouldn't have been pretty lackluster. Freddy's able to just take whatever she gives, and he just keeps coming and pretty much kicks her ass right here by throwing her. Alice does her front flip. She uses Debbie's, not Debbie, but Sheila's bug killing device to burn a hole through Freddy's chest. Good effect coming up here. Of course, Freddy just waves the wound away. One thing I don't like is I would like it better if she was able to actually do some damage to Freddy. Like, she's close to Freddy's equal here, but at the same time, she's not able to do any lasting damage to him. And I get the idea. They want to make Freddy seem extremely powerful, so he's like, has to be overcome because he's so powerful. So you want to make the hero seem like they're at a disadvantage. But at the same time, though, she's supposed to be the Dream Master, like close to as powerful as Freddy, in concept. So she should be able to do a little more damage to him. I would have liked that a little better. Of course, here we got the Dream Master rhyme and the showing of Freddy's face in the mirror. Awesome effects, seeing all the souls inside of his body and coming back out of his eyeball. That was awesome. And of course, the idea is she shows Freddy his own reflection, which is he sees how evil he is, for the first time or whatever, and it's supposed to make him like spiritually weak. And so it's able to like make the souls give him power to rise up against him and break out. It's kind of a weak way to defeat Freddy. I mean, in the idea of it, but the effect for it is awesome. I do like that she's able to actually like set the souls free, how they're like all come flying out of his body and stuff after he's been torn apart. In terms of the actual effects, this is the best Freddy death. But in terms of like concept, the one from part 3 was better. I like how she kicks his glove too and says "Rest in hell." That's pretty damn funny. Yeah, we're drawing to the end here of Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and then I'll pretty much give my overall final thoughts on it. I like to kind of, after I watch these movies again for these commentaries, I like to kind of give my final thoughts on the movies of how I feel about them now, because your opinions and stuff on films can change, of course. Because I reviewed these movies years ago. I think I may have called like part 3 after I watched it, like in its commentary. I think I may have called it like a masterpiece. Um, After I had time to reflect on it and all that, and after watching the films like a couple more times and stuff, it's really not a masterpiece. It's a great sequel though. It's not as good as part 1 though. Part 1 is a masterpiece. And like I said, 2 is pretty good for the gay metaphor film it is, but it's not very good as a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And there's the credits. Freddy's reflection was in the fountain. Of course, seeing Freddy's reflection in the fountain, um, it's just a way to show that Freddy's presence is still alive. That there he could come back for another one. Another one could happen. They've done it at the end of all of these films. I don't really think you need it, but they feel the need to like keep in tradition with the other films. But yeah, that was in A Nightmare on Elm Street 4. How would I rate the movie so far after doing commentaries for each one and watching them all in consecutive order, pretty much? Part 1, 4 out of 4, masterpiece. Part 2, 3.5 out of 4. Pretty good gay metaphor movie, like I've said, but not really a good A Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Part 3, 4 out of 4. Not a masterpiece like I originally thought when I did my commentary, but a great sequel. Really fun horror comedy. This one, part 4, I would give it a 3.5 out of 4. It's very much a B movie by the end, an 80s B movie, but it's a really good 80s B movie that is fun as hell. This is the most fun film of the franchise. Not the best written or the best movie in general, but it's the most fun in just terms of pure popcorn entertainment. And of course, the Freddie Fat Boy song, and you got the Sinead O'Connor song here as well. Great soundtrack. So, thank you guys for watching and tuning in. This was a really good entry. I'm interested to see how I feel about part 5. I remember liking it, thinking it was like all right. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but it'll be interesting to see how I feel about it now. But thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end of the commentary, and I will see you again for a Nightmare on Elm Street 5: The Dream Child.